Well, the Destiny 2 Lightfall campaign is a major step down from campaigns that have come before it, which is especially jarring since The Witch Queen. That was only 12 months ago, and that was really fantastic stuff. So how did this happen, and what does this mean for the upcoming year of content as we lead into the final shape, and the end of the Light vs Darkness Saga? Well, today I'm going to have a look at what went wrong, and where that leaves us in Destiny 2. Well, there was much build-up to Lightfall, and a lot of momentum from the Witch Queen, and Lightfall's story and campaign appears to have slammed the brakes when it comes to that momentum leading us towards the end of the current saga. This has been 6 years in the making, and Bungie appears to have taken a few steps back in regards to the story, which, to be honest, is a massive shame, given we're only a few weeks since the fantastic story that we just had with Anna Bray and Rasputin from that More Than a Hero questline in Season of the Seraph. Early in the Lightfall campaign, we're called to Neomuna, the neon city of Neptune, to investigate the Veil. We're told desperately that we need to find the Veil, because otherwise, the Witness and Callus, they're going to use it to connect the Traveller, which apparently is bad, although it's never really explained as to why. So we meet the Cloud Striders, the inhabitants of Neptune, and although we only meet a couple of them because everyone else has been digitised and uploaded to the Cloud Ark, the information superhighway where residents of Neomuna can live forever. So much is crammed into a short space of time. It doesn't really allow for connections to develop between the story and the audience. Neomuna is cold and empty, although it's being sold to us as a city under siege. While certain areas do feel like they're crawling with Vex and Cabal, otherwise the city is cold and lifeless, while somehow looking brand new at the same time. So let's take a moment and have a look at some of the positives of the Lightfall campaign. So the gameplay is good. Strand feels great, and there's a good variety of encounters. Those initial cutscenes in the campaign are also very good. The Witness feels dangerous, and you've got an Avengers Endgame feel to seeing Zavala, Mara, Ikora and the gang on the ship looking out into space. You've got the Traveller attacking the Pyramid Fleet. That is very welcome indeed. This huge static ball that has been in our skies for 6 years, barely moving, even though it's called the Traveller. Seeing it go out there to meet the Witness and the Pyramid Fleet was great, and to go on the offensive for once. We've known about its tendencies to flee danger and save itself, given that's the way it acted with the Elixni, leading to Eramis hating the Traveller. One final positive was the showdown between Callus and Keitel, a father versus daughter battle that has been years in the making, and the siege before the final boss was good fun, although it would have been poetic for Kai to have taken the final blow against her father rather than us. Unfortunately, that is where the positive end for me when it comes to the Lightfall campaign. Everything is just so condensed. I haven't really had the time to build up an emotional connection to the Cloud Striders, therefore Rohan's death is very flat. The mission itself was fun from a gameplay point of view, but in terms of caring about the outcome, it just didn't hit the right notes. Tonally, Nimbus doesn't feel like a well-written character. They seem to get over Rohan's death far too quickly. Osiris was also a major letdown in the campaign, so Osiris' character was used very effectively in the build-up to the Witch Queen, but he's been back for a season, so put right again by drinking a tea made out of the current raid boss remains, and thrown back into the campaign to become the whiniest version of Osiris we've ever seen. Osiris just moans all the way through the campaign, telling us to hurry up, or ordering us about, or being super vague about the Veil. Osiris has been a good character in the past, and he had to work really hard to recover from the Curse of Osiris campaign. It felt like he redeemed himself during Season of Dawn, with the return of Saint 14, but this was a massive step down for Osiris as a character, and has definitely negatively impacted how I feel about him going forward. If I see that he's involved, I'm probably going to be less interested. Well, then we got the Veil. So we're told fairly early on about the Veil. We're not told about what it is, or what it does, or why it's important. I understand over the months of Lightfall we're going to get more information related to the Veil, but to introduce something like this so late on in the saga, and then not resolve it in the campaign, just kind of feels bad. Then we've got references to the Radial Mast, and the Veil is connected to the Black Heart from the Black Garden, tying it all back to Destiny 1. The story feels like Destiny 1 storytelling. It's confused, and it feels like it's been quickly written. And then post-campaign, we've got Zavala and Ikora saying the Traveller's gone, and I thought, well, it was still there, but the Witness had just cut a portal into it, and then stepped into that portal. Lightfall's campaign felt like a disparate set of ideas that were barely held together with a very thin campaign. Too much emphasis on Strand, not enough story development with the Witness and Callus, and by far the best moments of the campaign were with the Witness and Callus. Callus just clearly being a pawn being used by the Witness, which itself is disappointing. Callus was supposed to be a super powerful Cabal Emperor, and yet his special ability as a campaign boss, well, that is just a gun. Well, the story in Lightfall feels like filler, and it also feels like a pivot has been made within Bungie itself. So this all has a familiar whiff of Destiny 1. So Jason Schreier has done a good job of documenting what happened with Destiny 1. I want to turn to a section of an article that he wrote for Kotaku at the time, back in 2015, because it is applicable now. However, he also dedicated a chapter to the making of Destiny in Blood, Sweat and Pixels, his fantastic book about the trials and tribulations of making games today. So this is an excerpt from the messy true story behind the making of Destiny. As I mentioned before, that is by Jason Schreier. So Jason says, in the summer of 2013, months before they were supposed to ship their next video game, the game developers at Bungie went into panic mode. The Storage Studio, best known for creating the multi-million selling Halo series, has spent the previous 3 years working on something they hoped would be revolutionary. Destiny, as they called it, would be a cross between a traditional shooter like Halo and a massively multiplayer game like World of Warcraft. It was going to become a cultural touchstone. We want people to put Destiny universe on the same shelf they put Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter or Star Wars, Bungie COO Pete Parsons said in an interview a couple of years ago, and reports suggested the publisher Activision had committed to a 10-year deal worth $500 million to make that happen. Well, back in 2013, something went terribly wrong. Destiny's writing team, led by the well-respected Bungie veteran Joe Staten, had been working on the game for several years. They put together what they called a supercut, a 2-hour video comprising the game's cinematics and major story beats. In July, they showed it to the studio's leadership, and that is when things went off the rails, according to 6 people who worked on Destiny. So senior staff at Bungie were unhappy with how the supercut had turned out. They decided it was too campy and linear, and they quickly decided to scrap Staten's version of the story and start from scratch. In the coming weeks, the development team would devise a totally new plot, overhauling Destiny and painstakingly stitching together the version they'd ultimately ship a year later in September 2014. And the theme showed. Reviewers singled out the story in particular, knocking the vague plot, the thin characters and opaque dialogue. Well, by 2015, a lot had improved. The most recent expansion, The Taken King, had levity and charm of which Destiny players hadn't seen before, but the question remained, how did such an ambitious game wind up with such a bare-bones plot? Why did Bungie seemingly change so much of the story before it shipped? And how did it ship in a state that required so much tweaking after it launched? And what really happened behind the scenes of Destiny? When the summer of 2013, just over a year before Destiny came out, the story got a full reboot, according to 6 people who were there. Bungie ditched everything Joe Staten and his team had written, reworking Destiny's entire structure as they scrapped plot threads, overhauled characters and rewrote most of the dialogue. The decision was made against Staten's wishes, sources say, and Destiny project lead Jason Jones and the rest of senior leadership were unhappy with the writing team's supercut, and their reaction was to scrap it all. Well, that is it for now from Jason Schreier and that article there from Kotaku, but it's really, really good. Definitely recommend going to read the whole thing, and once again, that is the messy, true story behind the making of Destiny. Well, that is just an example there of Bungie scrapping the whole story a year before Destiny came out, and it really, really feels like something similar has gone on with Lightfall. I don't know what has exactly happened inside Bungie, but the output for Lightfall certainly doesn't live up to the very high standards set by the Witch Queen. This is often the case with Destiny 2's great expansions. They aren't followed on with good ones. Forsaken was followed by Shadowkeep, Rise of Iron followed The Taken King, although many look back fondly on the Rise of Iron. This leaves me with thinking what is coming next for Destiny 2, and can Bungie redeem themselves in the year building up to the final shape? We're approaching the end of the Light vs Darkness Saga and the next steps of Destiny 2, which you could presume means we're about to leave our solar system via the portal created in the Traveller by the Witness, so this could present us with a soft reset, or maybe even a hard reset, although I'm not really sure that's a good idea, considering what happened in 2017. Destiny 2 itself is aging. It's a game that came out in 2017, and although Bungie has done a good job of upgrading the engine in the background, the game is definitely still showing its age. Plus, Bungie have got a few other projects in the pipeline. They've got a mobile game with NetEase, as well as a potential competitive hero shooter in the works, and maybe even an extraction shooter as well, based on Marathon. Destiny 2 is a huge cash cow for Bungie, bringing in millions of dollars, allowing them to fund other projects, but it's showing its age and creaking at the seams. PvP players aren't happy with the service they're getting, and the game's veered more to a PvE game in the last few years. Now the PvE crowd are getting unsettled by the campaign in Lightfall, and you have to wonder if Destiny 2 will survive the end of the Light vs Darkness saga. Well, I'd like to finish on a hopeful note. So much of the post-campaign content in Lightfall has been excellent, and while the campaign itself was a letdown, that might be because of a deadline or a time restriction. Some of the best story moments of the Witch Queen were drawn out over weeks and months, rather than condensed in the campaign. The Witch Queen had the benefit of years of build-up with Savathun, whereas Lightfall really only had a year of build-up with the Witness appearing in the Witch Queen for the first time. We've got Season of Defiance going on right now. We've got some powerful story threads in the game to explore, including Crow and Amanda, the Bray sisters, Osiris and Ikora, and also the yet-to-be-filled Hunter Vanguard position, plus a whole load more. I'm really hopeful that Bungie can flesh out the story in Lightfall and hit the landing when it comes to the final shape. Well, let me know down in the comments what you think about the Lightfall campaign. We'd really love to hear from you, and what do you think is going to happen over the course of the year as we build up to the final shape. So let me know down in the comments, or you can catch me on Twitter at TWIVG Podcast. Well, that is it for now for my thoughts on Destiny 2's Lightfall campaign. As always, thank you so much for watching or listening. Well, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you real soon.